ChatGPT didn't just launch, it detonated. In 2 months, 100 million people were using it, making it the fastest adopted consumer app in human history. And that was just the beginning. Today, I'm breaking down every major AI product you've heard of, what they actually do, and what nobody tells you about them, starting with the one that started it all, ChatGPT. Here's a number that should make every tech company on earth nervous. 100 million users in 2 months. Instagram took 2.5 years to hit that number. TikTok took 9 months. ChatGPT did it in 60 days. That's not normal software adoption. That's a cultural event. And it hasn't slowed down. Over 200 million people now use ChatGPT every single week. The $20 a month plus tier funds the development of newer, more powerful models, and millions of people pay it without thinking twice. It went from weird AI experiment to essential tool, faster than most apps figure out their login screen. But here's the thing. Most people using ChatGPT don't actually understand what it does. The biggest misconception is that it has live internet access by default. It doesn't. Unless you specifically enable browsing tools or plugins, ChatGPT is working entirely from its training data. It's not Googling things for you. It's generating responses based on patterns it learned during training. That distinction matters more than people realize. And then there's the debate that won't die. Critics call it sophisticated autocomplete, just pattern matching at scale, nothing more. But supporters point to something genuinely strange, emergent reasoning behaviors that nobody explicitly programmed into the system. It solves problems in ways its creators didn't anticipate. Whether that counts as intelligence depends on who you ask, but dismissing it as a fancy text predictor doesn't hold up when you actually look at what it produces. Either way, ChatGPT changed the game overnight, but it's far from the only AI product reshaping how we live, and the next one is doing it with pictures instead of words. Midjourney. Here's something that should not make sense. Midjourney has roughly 150 employees. That's it. 150 people running a platform that processes millions of image generations every single month and pulls in enough revenue to rival companies with 10 times the headcount. No massive campus, no thousands of engineers, just a small team punching way above its weight. And that's the other weird part. For years, Midjourney didn't even have its own website. The entire operation lived inside Discord. You type a text prompt into a chat channel, and 40 to 60 seconds later, you get a photorealistic image that looked like it was shot by a professional photographer. A company doing billions in creative output, operating like a mod team for a gaming server. They eventually launched a web interface in 2024, but the fact that Discord carried the whole platform for that long is still absurd. Founded by David Holtz, with its open beta launching in 2022, Midjourney charges anywhere from $10 to $120 a month depending on your subscription tier. And people pay it gladly because the results are genuinely stunning. Version 6 pushed the realism so far that generated images are now nearly indistinguishable from real photographs. But here's where it gets complicated. All that photorealism was trained on artwork scraped from real artists. Copyrighted paintings, illustrations, photographs, all fed into the model without consent or compensation. The artist community is furious, and honestly, it's hard to argue against them. Their work built the machine, and they got nothing for it. Then there's the deeper question nobody can agree on. Is what Midjourney produces actually art? Some say version 6's hyper-realism proves the technology has matured into a legitimate creative tool. Others argue the opposite, that the more realistic it gets, the less creative diversity it actually produces. Everyone's generating the same polished aesthetic, and originality is getting flattened. Either way, Midjourney proved that a tiny team can disrupt an entire industry overnight. But if you think image generation is controversial, Spotify. Discover Weekly. Every Monday, Spotify hands you a playlist of 30 songs it thinks you'll love. Most people hit play without thinking twice, but what's actually happening underneath that playlist is borderline unsettling. Discover Weekly launched in July 2015, and the system powering it is way more complex than people who like this also like that. Spotify uses collaborative filtering combined with natural language processing that actively scans music blogs, reviews, and articles to understand how people describe songs. It builds a taste profile for you that goes deeper than genre labels. We're talking tempo, key, energy, danceability, acoustic texture. Every single characteristic of a song gets mapped, and the scale is absurd. Spotify's recommendation engine analyzes over 70 billion song-to-song connections to generate your weekly playlist. That's not a typo. 70 billion. But here's where it gets weird. The algorithm can predict with 80% accuracy whether you'll skip a song song within the first 30 seconds. Before you've consciously decided you don't like it, Spotify already knew. It reads acoustic features, cross-references your listening history, and makes a judgment call on your taste faster than your own brain does. That's not a recommendation engine. That's a machine that knows your preferences better than you do. Now, a lot of people believe Spotify artificially boosts certain artists because labels pay for placement. That's not how the algorithm works. It's optimizing for one thing, keeping you listening. Your retention is the metric. If a song makes you hit skip, the algorithm learns from that instantly, regardless of what label released it. Here's the real debate though. Roughly 40% of Spotify's 600 million plus users engage with discovery features every single week. That's hundreds of millions of people having their musical tastes shaped by one algorithm. Some argue it genuinely expands what you listen to. Others say it slowly traps you in a shrinking bubble of similar sounds, feeding you the same vibe on repeat until your taste flatlines. Nobody's won that argument yet, but if an algorithm predicting your skips feels invasive, wait until you see how TikTok's for you. Page reads your behavior before you even finish watching a video. TikTok's for you page. TikTok doesn't need to know you. It figures you out in about 2 to 3 videos, not 2 to 3 hours, not 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 videos. That's all the algorithm requires before it starts building a psychological profile of your preferences, and it does this without your age, your location, or your follow history. Just your behavior, just your eyes on a screen, and it only gets creepier from there. The For You page runs on over 1,000 individual ranking features, processing every microsignal you generate, how long you watched, where you paused, whether you replayed, whether your thumb hovered over the share button for half a second before scrolling past. But here's the thing that should genuinely unsettle you. The algorithm makes predictions about whether you'll finish a video within the first second of you watching it. 1 second. It knows your attention span better than you do. It gets worse. TikTok's system can predict with 85% accuracy whether you'll hit not interested on a video, sometimes before you've consciously decided you don't like it. Let that sink in. The algorithm is reading your preferences faster than your own brain is processing them. Now here's something most casual users don't understand. ByteDance built this system from the ground up to ignore follower counts. Since 2016, the entire architecture has been recommendation first. That's why a random person with 0 followers can post a video and wake up to 10 million views, while a creator with a massive audience can post and get absolutely nothing. Your follower count is essentially decorative. The algorithm decides who sees what, period. This is where the real debate lives. Is TikTok just extremely good at matching you with content you enjoy, or is it deliberately engineering compulsive behavior by exploiting psychological vulnerabilities? Over 1.5 billion active users are currently inside that experiment, and nobody has a definitive answer. But at least TikTok is showing you videos you chose to open the app for. Netflix doesn't even give you that much agency. Netflix recommendation engine. Netflix knows what you want to watch before you do. That sounds like marketing fluff, but the numbers back it up. 75% of everything watched on Netflix comes through algorithmic recommendation, not search, not browsing. The algorithm decides and you click. Here's how it works. Netflix's recommendation engine combines collaborative filtering with deep neural networks, processing data from over 250 million viewing sessions every single day. And it's not just tracking what you watch. The model pulls from over 2,000 metadata points per title. That includes genre tags, pacing, dialogue density, color grading, scene composition, cast connections, and dozens of behavioral signals most users never think about. Now here's a common misconception. A lot of people think their star ratings are the primary driver behind what Netflix recommends. They're not. Your actual viewing behavior, what you watch, when you pause, when you rewatch, when you bail after 6 minutes, that data matters infinitely more than any rating you manually assign. But the wildest part isn't what Netflix recommends. It's how it presents those recommendations to you. The same movie can have 4 or 5 completely different thumbnail images, and Netflix serves you a specific one based on your viewing history. If you watch a lot of romantic comedies, you'll see the lead actors close together. If you watch thrillers, you'll see the same film's thumbnail with darker lighting and tension on the actors' faces. You and your neighbor could be looking at the exact same title and seeing 2 entirely different images. Netflix isn't just choosing what to recommend, it's engineering how each title looks to make you more likely to click. And this isn't some fun experiment. It's a financial survival tool. Personalization alone saves Netflix roughly $1 billion a year by reducing churn. Every recommendation that keeps you watching is one fewer cancellation. Every custom thumbnail that gets a click is revenue retained. It's arguably the most elegant manipulation on this entire list. But if you think Netflix is clever for changing a thumbnail, wait until you see what Tesla is trying to do with 2 tons of metal moving at highway speed. Tesla, full full self-driving. Let's talk about the most controversial product on this entire list. Tesla's full self-driving system costs $12,000 to buy outright or $99 a month to subscribe, making it one of the most expensive AI consumer features you can purchase. And the name implies something very specific: full self-driving, except it's not. Here's the thing, FSD is legally not level 5 autonomy. It requires active driver supervision at all times. You have to keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, and be ready to take over at any moment. That's not a minor caveat buried in the fine print. That is the entire reality of the product, directly contradicting what the name tells you it does. Every other product on this list has a gap between marketing and reality. This one has a canyon. But let me explain how it actually works, because the technology itself is genuinely impressive. Version 12 first rolled out in late 2023 and uses 8 cameras combined with neural networks trained on billions of miles of real-world driving data. Tesla has collected over 1 billion miles of FSD-specific usage data to feed back into the system. The car watches the road, interprets lane markings, pedestrians, other vehicles, traffic signals, and makes driving decisions in real time. But here's where it gets complicated. Tesla uses an end-to-end neural network approach, which means the system is trained directly on video input rather than following traditional programmed rules. The result? The decision-making process is partially opaque even to the engineers who built it. The car literally cannot fully explain why it made a specific decision. For a product that operates at highway speeds with human lives at stake, that's a different level of concern than a chatbot hallucinating a fake source. And the safety data? Tesla provides it, but it's not independently verified. Safety advocates have consistently pushed for more transparency, and what we have right now is largely company source numbers. That doesn't mean the data is wrong. It means nobody outside Tesla can confirm it's right. This is the only product on this list where AI failure doesn't mean a bad playlist or a weird image. It means a car accident, and that distinction matters more than any feature spec ever could. Now, if Tesla represents AI at its most physically dangerous, the next product represents AI at its most quietly powerful, something you've been using for over a decade without even thinking about it. Apple Siri is on over 2 billion active Apple devices right now. It processes more than 2 billion requests every single week. It understands 35 plus languages and runs on approximately 500 million lines of code. By every measurable metric, Siri is the most widely deployed AI assistant on the planet, and it's also the butt of every AI joke on the internet. Here's the thing, that gap between Siri's massive reach and its reputation isn't an accident. It's not lazy engineering. It's not Apple falling behind. It's a deliberate choice, and most people have zero idea it's happening. When Siri launched in October 2011 with the iPhone 4S, it was genuinely groundbreaking. The first mainstream AI assistant on a consumer device. Nobody was doing that. But as competitors moved to heavy cloud processing, shipping every query to massive server farms where more powerful models could crunch the data, Apple went the opposite direction. They committed to on-device processing for a huge number of Siri tasks. Your voice data stays on your phone. It never touches Apple servers, and that sounds great until you realize what it actually costs. Cloud processing is how you get smarter, faster, more accurate AI responses. That's exactly how ChatGPT and Gemini operate. They send everything to the cloud, process it with enormous computational power, and send back results that feel almost magical. Apple looked at that model and said no. They deliberately sacrificed capability improvements to keep your voice data private. Let me say that clearly. Siri is intentionally less capable than it could be, by design. The lag you experience when Siri fumbles a basic request isn't a bug. It's a philosophical decision baked into the architecture. Now, there's a common misconception that all Siri queries stay on your device. They don't. Complex tasks still route to Apple's cloud, but the default posture is privacy first, capability second. That's a genuinely unusual bet for a trillion-dollar company to make. Whether that trade-off is worth it depends on how much you value your data, but at least Siri's limitations come from a principled stance. Google's Gemini has no such excuse, and what it's doing to search results is genuinely alarming. Google Gemini. Google has more data than any company on earth, more infrastructure, more users, more everything. And somehow they still managed to fumble their AI launch so badly that the internet turned Bard into a punchline overnight. Here's what actually happened. Google launched Bard on March 21st, 2023, and the reception was brutal. It felt rushed, incomplete, and like Google panicking because ChatGPT was eating their lunch. People expected something revolutionary. Instead, they got a chatbot playing catch-up. So Google did what Google does. They killed the brand and started over. In February 2024, Bard became Gemini, and shortly after, Gemini 2.0 Flash dropped. This wasn't just a name change. Gemini was built to be multimodal from the ground up, processing text, images, audio, and video all within a single model. Not bolted on, not patched in, native. That's a genuine technical achievement that put Gemini in a different category than most competitors. But here's where it gets really interesting and honestly, kind of terrifying. Google integrated AI overviews directly into Google search. Those AI-generated summaries that now appear above your actual search results. Google says they increased search query volume by over 10% globally. Sounds great, right? But here's the kicker. Those overviews answer questions directly inside the search page, meaning users aren't clicking through to external websites nearly as often. Google built an AI product that keeps people on Google while starving the websites that actually create the content Google is summarizing. The entire web ecosystem that feeds Google search is getting cannibalized by Google's own AI. That alone makes Gemini one of the most fascinating corporate experiments in tech history. No other company has voluntarily deployed a product that undermines its own cash cow's content pipeline at the scale. And those AI overviews reach over 1 billion users, and they hallucinate. We're not talking about a chatbot making mistakes in private conversations. We're talking about fabricated information surfaced through the most trusted search interface on the planet, presented with the authority of a Google result. Misinformation at a scale no other AI product can match, not because Gemini is worse, but because Google search is everywhere. But if Google's own AI is threatening the ecosystem that feeds everything, wait until you see what happens when a company builds AI directly into the creative tools professionals depend on every single day. Adobe Firefly. While every other AI image generator was busy getting sued, Adobe did something nobody expected. They played defense. Firefly launched on March 21st, 2023, and on paper, it looks like Adobe's showing up late to a party that Midjourney and Stable Diffusion already owned. But here's the thing, Adobe wasn't trying to win the same game. They were playing a completely different one. Let me explain. Every major AI image generator trains on massive data sets scraped from the internet. That means copyrighted artwork, stolen illustrations, photographs taken without permission. It's a legal minefield, and multiple lawsuits are already proving that. Adobe looked at that chaos and said, we're not touching it. Firefly was trained exclusively on licensed Adobe stock images, openly licensed content like Creative Commons and public domain material, zero scraped artwork, zero stolen photographs, zero copyrighted material pulled from third-party creators without permission. And then they did something even wilder. Adobe committed to legally indemnifying enterprise customers against copyright claims arising from Firefly outputs. That means if your company gets sued over an image Firefly generated, Adobe's legal team steps in and fights that battle for you. A billion-dollar company putting its own lawyers on the line to protect your AI-generated content. That's not a feature, that's a statement. Now let's be honest about the trade-off. Firefly does not match Midjourney for raw artistic output. If you want the most stunning, jaw-dropping image generation available right now, Midjourney still wins that fight. But here's where Adobe's real advantage kicks in. Firefly isn't a standalone tool living inside Discord. It's built directly into Photoshop, Illustrator, and Adobe Express, the software that professional designers already use every single day. You get 100 monthly generative credits on the free tier, and full access comes bundled with Creative Cloud at $84.99 a month with no per image charges. For a freelance designer or an agency producing client work, the calculus is simple. You can use Midjourney and generate gorgeous images while praying nobody files a copyright claim against your deliverables. Or you can use Firefly inside the tools you already pay for, with a Fortune 500 company guaranteeing legal safety for its enterprise clients. Adobe understood something fundamental about this market. Professional creatives don't just need beautiful outputs. They need outputs they can actually use without getting sued. And right now, nobody else is offering that guarantee. But Firefly and every other tool we've covered today share one thing in common, and it might be the most important detail of all. Spotify. Hey, Spotify. This one isn't flashy. It's not going to make headlines or start debates about whether AI is replacing humanity, but it might be the most important product on this entire list for understanding where all of this is actually going. Hey, Spotify launched in beta in December 2023, available available to premium subscribers paying $10.99 a month. Right now, it supports English, Spanish, and Portuguese. On the surface, it's just voice control for your music. You talk, it plays. Simple. But here's where it gets interesting. Say you ask it to play that song from the 80s I heard yesterday. Think about what that request actually requires. The system has to process your voice, understand the words, figure out that yesterday means a specific timestamp in your listening history, cross-reference that history against songs tagged as 1980s releases, and pull the correct track from a catalog of over 100 million songs. That's not keyword matching. That's combining speech recognition, natural language understanding, personal data analysis, and music metadata all in real time. A few years ago, that request would have returned nothing or the wrong song every single time. Now it works. Not perfectly, but it works. And that's worth paying attention to. The real-world reception has been mixed. Some users say it's faster than typing. Others say it's barely more accurate than just searching manually. There are also legitimate privacy concerns about voice data collection, and Spotify hasn't been nearly as transparent about how they handle that data compared to Apple's approach with Siri. Those are valid criticisms, but the technology itself is genuinely impressive. Understanding that song I heard yesterday isn't a parlor trick. It's proof that voice AI has moved past simple commands and into contextual reasoning. The system isn't just hearing you, it's remembering you. And here's the thing, that's the real story of every single product we've covered today. ChatGPT isn't just a chatbot, it's a language layer that millions of people now think through. Midjourney isn't just an image generator, it's a creative layer that changed how people visualize ideas. TikTok's algorithm isn't just a feed, it's a behavioral prediction layer that knows what you want before you do. Netflix doesn't just recommend shows, it literally changes the thumbnail you see based on who you are. Tesla is trying to make driving itself an AI layer. Siri, Gemini, Adobe Firefly, Spotify's own Discover Weekly. Every single one of these products tells the same story. AI isn't arriving. It already arrived. It's underneath the apps you already use, the music you already listen to, the shows you already watch, the searches you already run. It's not replacing your habits. It's embedding itself inside them. Hey, Spotify isn't the most powerful AI product on this list. Not even close. But it might be the clearest example of where everything is heading. A world where AI doesn't announce itself. It just works. Quietly, invisibly. Already knowing what you want. And that world isn't coming. You're already living in it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.